Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today is about a man who tells us that his insurance company allows him to purchase $40 worth of various kinds of meds and over-the-counter pills and things, medications, cough syrups, dental floss, etc. $40 worth every quarter. And so he was placing his order, and he was asking God to inspire him on what to order through the catalog, and he picked about 6 different items. And when he finished picking the 6 items he was inspired and led to pick, the bill came to exactly $40, which was the credit he was allowed. And he shared with us that, it really works, asking God what to do. This was a definite clue for him that he could ask God what to do and get inspired and follow God's directions. Our next coincidence miracle is from a man who tells us that it's true that God does put ideas, inspirations, intuitions into our mind, that they just pop into our mind as long as we're trying to be his friend, that he notices that those things are happening. And he tells us a story about he was going on a trip, apparently an hour trip by car, and he was inspired to get ready and to leave at a certain time. And he got to his car in his driveway, and when he got to his car in his driveway, an idea popped into his head to check his emails on his iPhone. So he followed the inspiration. He felt it was from God, so he took the time. It took about, he says, like 5 minutes. He was sitting in the car in his driveway. It took 5 minutes, and he checked his email on his iPhone. And then he was getting ready to go, and he got inspired again to count up to the number 20, to count for another 20 seconds, and then leave after 20 seconds. And he was amazed that he got that thought, but he said, okay, what's 20 seconds? So he counted 20 seconds, and then he goes to pull out of his driveway, and he tells us that a car went by just before he pulled out, and when he pulled out, he found out that he was following a car with the number 777. Now, the story goes on from here, but he was pretty excited that that happened because he's heard those kinds of stories on our radio show already, and now it had happened to him. So he was excited about it. But the story goes on. He drives this hour trip to where he's going, and then an hour later, when he's getting off, he says he's getting off exit 95, and as he was getting off the exit, a car passes him with a license plate number 888, just as his radio broadcaster says, and don't forget to call the number 888. So I guess he got goosebumps. He heard the radio say, don't forget to call 888, and he saw a car with a license plate 888 passing him just as he was about to go off the exit to get off of exit 95. Our next coincidence miracle has to do about me. I was going to a book signing. I was going to be signing some books at a particular place, and so I got there, and as I was walking in to go into the book signing, I saw a husband and wife biking. They were both on separate bikes, and they had stopped for a rest right outside of the place. And I was inspired, had a few minutes, I was inspired to stop and hand them a card. You know, I hand cards out about our book and our radio show and my lectures. It gives the website, etc. So I hand these cards out to practically everybody I can. And because I hand the cards out, because God willing, I'm inspired to do it, but God willing, God will get to bless many people that visit our website. So that's my purpose and my modus operandi. So I stopped. They were resting. I wasn't going to be intruding on anything. They were just sitting there resting. And so I handed them a card, and they asked about it, and I told them I wrote 2 books. Each book has 100 miracle stories in it. I told them that I've been experiencing miracles for the last 54 years, and I give lectures about it, and the website has some free things they could listen to. Well, they were very excited, but just before I left, and I enjoyed talking to them, the wife said to me, and her husband was there listening, she said, 10 seconds, couldn't have been more than 10 seconds before you came over and offered your card, I had just told my husband that I just finished reading the last book I was reading. We're both avid readers, and I was relating to him that I was inspired that what I wanted to do was get a book from C.S. Lewis, because he wrote about many great religious stories, or get a book about miracles or something about the friendship of God and the miracles of God. And I just told him that, and he was nodding his head to me, saying, yes, she did. That's what she told me just before you came. And you walked over and handed a card. So I'm sharing all this with you because, you see, God had inspired me to stop and give them a card. He just popped that idea in my head, and God knew that they were saying what they were saying, and God had apparently popped into her head an idea, an inspiration to tell her husband about her wanting to get a different kind of book. So the husband experienced all this as well. And if she did not bring it up, I would have never known. So that was another idea she got at the last moment to tell me, another idea from God to tell me the story. She didn't have to do that. So I'm sharing with you that there were like 3 or 4 I-deos going on here. I was inspired to give them a card before I went into the book signing, and it was 10 seconds before, and I didn't know that. She was inspired to tell her husband that she was changing, her next book was going to be on miracles. And then I arrived, and then she was inspired to tell me, and the husband was inspired to nod his head yes. So you see how God is orchestrating all these I-deos, inspirations, to get all 3 of us to get messages from him. And where are they coming from? They're coming from God, but they're coming through each one of our own minds, because God is prompting us to speak these things. And that's how you'll notice God speaking through you. And that's why the Bible says, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, God says, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Let me say that one more time. God says in the Bible, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, which means in my presence, there am I in the midst of them. And that's what was happening with all these I-deos that he was popping into each of our minds to speak. Our next coincidence miracle was at the book signing. 2 friends came up to me and explained to me that they enjoyed my talk about miracles and coincidences, and they wanted to share a story with me. And I asked everybody to please tell me any miracle stories they had. And they explained to me that one of them had just moved, and they moved into the neighborhood where this other friend was, and this was 15 years ago. And they were 3 houses away from each other, but they had met, The one who was there had welcomed her into the area, into the neighborhood. And then about a month after they moved into the area, about a month later, the person who just moved into that area went on a vacation, and they were living in Connecticut, but now the vacation was in California. So they went all the way out to California on vacation 1 month after they had moved in Connecticut. And they got to some park in California, and as they were entering the entranceway to the park, they met the neighbor who had welcomed them into the neighborhood. So obviously both neighbors, both of these people who were now at the book signing, both of them 15 years ago wound up meeting again in this California park 1 month after relocating to the Connecticut neighborhood. And so they told me that was the spark that ignited and have made them the best, the closest of friends now for the last 15 years. And they are also now members of the same church and the same prayer group. And the prayer group regularly prays for people who they hear need miracles and need help. And so for the last 15 years, they've been very accustomed to miracles happening. And their prayer group seems to be like a group of about 20 people who pray weekly for people having problems. And so they shared all that with me, and I couldn't resist but tell you what a coincidence miracle that was. 1 month after relocating in Connecticut, and they did meet. It was God's will that they did see each other and saw each other face to face, because one of them had an I-deo by God to go introduce themselves. Otherwise, they would have never known each other in California. And then they get to California on vacation, and they meet each other at the entrance to a park. Totally amazing story. But clearly, again, for all of us listening, this is how God works within his people. And that's why I-deos, inspirations, intuitions, premonitions, those are all things that God is dropping into our heads to try to get us to move in his direction. He can't talk to us directly because of free will, but he can put suggestions into our mind in the form of ideas, inspirations, intuitions, etc. Our next coincidence miracle is from a man who is being honest with us and telling us that he's been listening to our shows for a while, but he's been really doubting that people are getting these coincidence miracles and inspirations from God because none of these things have been happening to him. And so for a while there, he was thinking maybe he should stop listening to the show. But he had a wonderful experience happen, which he sent us a note about. He was driving on an interstate highway, and he started thinking about some very close friends of his that he had not seen in a while. And he was thinking about them and reminiscing about the good times they had had. And he kept feeling like he should call them today or look them up today somehow, or send them a note or a letter, or plan on getting together with them. And just as he was doing this, he heard somebody blowing the horn as they were passing him, and he looks out the driver's side window, and there's a car filled with his friends. The friends he was thinking about were passing by him exactly at the moment that he was thinking about he should reach out to them and call them, etc. So he's become a convinced listener now, and he said that this was an amazing thing to happen. He knows the idea was popped into his head, the inspiration to call his friends or reach out to them, because immediately while he was thinking about it, the friends are driving by, and apparently they live about 40 miles away from each other. So this was a pretty remarkable event. But I'm glad I'm able to share this with you, because if you have doubts, you also just need to have a little trust, a little faith, and try it, and you'll believe it. Try what? Talk to God, ask him what to do. That's all you got to try, because when you ask him what to do, you'll find out that he does answer you. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.